We are live.
Got my monster.
Get a monster energy drink.
Yeah, I'll have to make do with my half liter of coffee here. Might be a whole liter.
Man, I don't know how you don't have crippling anxiety.
I think I have. I think I have. I think I have whatever the opposite of anxiety is, and so coffee just brings me back to normal.
Drink all that coffee. Yeah, if I have too much caffeine, it's just like, oh,
Paul's the same.
right. I like a cup of coffee in the morning. So what are you gonna do?
Just suffer.
Suffer. Anyway, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. David and I, missing
Yep.
Daria again.
Yep.
It's Ukraine Independence Day, so um, maybe maybe eventually she'll make it back on the chat. But
Which that's independence from the Soviet Union, I guess.
yeah, I assume so,
Yeah.
but I don't know specifically what it
Yeah.
refers to. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so you're stuck with just David and I for the near future. So you're gonna have to deal with it
Yeah. At least till next week.
at least till next week. Um, but yeah, what's going on?
Well, Biohack the Planet's like less than 2 weeks away, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, Biohack Planet's less than 2 weeks away. It's the biohacking conference that we hold here in Austin. There's still a couple tickets left. You should come. If you didn't get a ticket yet, just let us know, and um, you know we'll do our best to make sure that anybody who wants to come can. You know, so but it's lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. Um, yeah,
I mean,
lots of cool stuff. Just hanging out and talking about science and biohacking and doing experiments. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. The We should be doing some micro injection today, getting ready for what we want to do uh, at Biohack the Planet. So I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be cool. We're gonna do some micro injection, teach people how to do micro injections at Biohack the Planet. Um, Show people the little rig setup we have, so maybe they can copy it, and let them actually stab some embryos
Yeah,
and inject them, which will be, you know, fun. It is pretty fun. It's like a little video game. So,
it kind of is. And like,
mm,
it's funny how you kind of got to get good at it, because like when you're trying to stab them, they're round, so they like roll. So you're like, oh no, got to go down, and then it's like, oh, now it's going this way. So you gotta like drive the whole thing. It's pretty fun.
yeah, yeah. I like to come in just like from the top angle, just like angle it up. Yeah, but it'll be fun. There's gonna be a lot of other stuff that's going on also. Gonna be working with stem cells and everything. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
So just make sure you can make it if you want. It's in Austin, Texas. So September 2nd to the 4th. Um, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Let's see. That's an interesting question, I think, but I think they already have that. I think they're doing some like clinical trials with stuff like that. Some chemicals that just regrow teeth. I think it was like an unexpected side effect of an Alzheimer's drug. They were like, "Huh, this makes you regrow teeth." Weird.
that's funny. Yeah. Anyway, um,
Yeah,
people always are into teeth and hair. It's just like,
and I guess I get that. It's like, you know, it's the parts you're most likely to lose. You know.
It's true. They're pretty easy to fix though, also, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Compared to like an arm. Yeah,
Yeah, compared to most body parts, it's like, you know, you lose teeth, it's easy to get like an implant or replacement or something like that. Um, and if you lose your hair, it's like the same thing. There's like a million different ways that they've made for like men to regrow hair.
yeah. That's what,
Obviously, it's less common in women, but you know,
yeah. It's also like hair plugs is one of the weirdest things to me because it's just like transplanting a tree or something. You know, it's just like, yeah, we'll just scoop it up, stab it, make a hole over here, and stab it in, and everything will just keep going. It's
yeah,
just
it's pretty weird.
like, you know, you never see anybody with like decorative hair transplants, but you totally could.
Where,
You could,
where would
in
you put
theory, you
extra
could put them
hair?
anywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, gonna move follicles around, you could get crazy with it. I suspect somebody in the future will have like hair growing on their forearms that they've moved or something, like long head hair.
Okay. I wonder if it stay like, does it like stay grow the same length? Like, what happens?
I think so. Like when they move it from like, you know, like back here or something to like up here to like fill in the things.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Because like, if you moved like, you know, your let's say like armpit hair, like would it transplant to your head and would it like grow the same?
I think probably so.
You think so?
I think so.
Huh.
Because like I don't know if like there's local effects from other hormones or whatever, but like I think it's more about like the cells in the follicle and their programming.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's just like somebody should try that.
Yeah, you could draw designs. You could,
Yeah. I wonder if anybody's ever
or,
transplanted hair from like somebody else also.
oh, gross.
You know? Like I
Yeah,
wonder if anybody's like you know, taken like red hair from somebody and transplanted it onto themselves.
yeah. I don't know. That would be so weird to me. It would weird me out. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah?
they do skin transplants and stuff. You
I mean
know?
they do everything transplants. So
Yeah.
like
I mean, it seems like it should work, right?
yeah, I don't know.
I
It'd
don't
be
know.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it seems doable. I mean, I think I've seen them. I've seen the procedure. It's just like a punch and then another biopsy punch, and then they just grab the little follicle in the punch and stab it in the space, and then just like put some neosporin on it or something. Like, I mean, I don't think there's anything fancy about it.
That's funny. Um, yeah, hair. Yeah, I mean, hair, and I actually got a question about boobs. You know, I don't get those often. It's usually, you know, can you genetically modify my penis to be bigger?
Mhm.
But like yesterday, I got a question if I could help somebody get bigger breasts. So, you know,
You're like, well, probably.
I'm trying to like even out the weird questions from the different, you know, sexes.
People, yeah. Oh man, yeah. I do think that would be cool. Like, if you had good bioluminescence, like, who doesn't want a bioluminescent tattoo or something? You know,
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
like I do think that's one of those things you'll see in the future one day. You know, is some sort of like genetically modified, you know, like dots on your forehead that are that glow.
It'd be pretty annoying though because you just want to be in the dark all the time just to like show off, you know? You'd be like,
Right.
oh man.
Like it looks so much cooler in the dark.
Every
You can't.
time everybody comes over, they're like, why is it so dim in here? And I'm just like, I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be a stealth debuff also. Your hiding skills would go down. Like the movie. Yeah.
Anyway, biohackering. So you sent me this article this morning.
Oh yeah,
about this White House
yeah,
scientist,
yeah. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Uh,
Jane
Jane Lubchenco, something like that. Lubchenco.
Luchenko.
I don't know. I've
Yeah.
only read it, so I'm bad at that. But yeah, she's on the. Well, she got banned for 5 years from publishing by the National Academy of Sciences for ethical misconduct. And it's funny because she's on the White House. What is it? Scientific Integrity Task Force. She's like the co-head of the Scientific Integrity Task Force. And now she can't publish because of ethical violations.
It's so funny how little ethics scientists have. You know, they have like a whole group of people dedicated to like ethics. But it's just like so many people commit fraud. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah. That's been one of the most shocking things to me. It's like just how much even simple shit like bad Photoshop jobs and stuff there are in papers. And and like this paper, the one that she got in trouble over is like it got retracted, and they still like put it in some legislation as a reference for like this new bill they're trying to pass as like scientific justification for the bill. It's like this
Yeah.
retracted paper that the person got banned for publishing for.
Yeah, the sketchy thing was it says that like she helped them edit it and then get it accepted. You know, it was submitted to what? The Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences. And when you're like a National Academy member, you can like uh, review papers and stuff like that. And so she basically like scammed the paper's way into getting accepted, but also the paper had apparently fake data in it,
Yeah,
and she was okay with that because she was helping them get the paper accepted, which is like really weird. You know, it's like, wait, this seems a little more deeper than just like, you
yeah.
didn't do much wrong. You know, to me, it's a little sketchy.
Oh yeah. And I think it was like her brother-in-law also was like the one who wrote the paper and all this stuff. So yeah, it definitely seems like, hey, you know, let's make up some science to justify, you know, us wanting to get this bill through.
Yeah, scientific ethics committees. It's just weird because scientists are so have to publish. It's so important that it forces them, and that's the problem. Also, you know, like people wouldn't have to fake all this stuff if there wasn't so much pressure for scientists to publish stuff. But because there is, then they commit fraud.
Yeah, yeah, and it's terrible because it screws over everybody. You know,
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
it always like uh you can't reliably trust the papers that you read. You know, and I know you and me both have tried to replicate things from papers that just don't work the way that they say they do in the papers. You know,
Oh yeah, you know, the only way I read papers anymore is like for their methods. And
yeah,
even then, like most of the methods are wrong in some way. Don't make any sense, you know?
yeah. And so a lot of it's just like, and that sucks because you want to be able to like trust scientists and science as like an institution, and like it's easy to trust the process of science, but not like the institution of science, and that sucks.
Yeah,
So
for
your
sure.
only option really left with is to like do the science yourself, and that's the only way you know what's real.
Yeah, it is. And that makes it really hard, you know, because science is just stuck trying to, um, like, you're always trying to replicate the findings of somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
James says, any chance I could genetically engineer pets for a living?
I sure
I
hope
don't
so.
think, yeah, I don't think it's a terrible idea, but what you got to do is first learn to genetically engineer
Yeah, and
and then
also
do it.
things. Yeah, Like technically, you could just buy a bunch of glowfish and become a glowfish salesman. They're genetically engineered pets. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely look forward to the day when there are people selling genetically engineered pets who are like, you know, happier, healthier, more interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of science, not just biology, archaeology, I guess you can consider science somewhat. Um, well, I mean, there's science involved, right? But I think there's also a lot of speculation and opinion that goes into it.
Oh, sure.
Um, but I think just in all of academic, work in general, there's a lot of stuff that is exaggerated, fabricated, or fake, or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sucks because like when it's a really competitive environment, like you want to compete, and the system's like built to screw you over. You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I bet most of these people got into science because they like care about science and want to do good science and want to like
Oh
be
no.
chemist.
Oh
You don't think so?
no. The majority of scientists, the majority of people I went to graduate school with, do it because they're from well-off families and they don't want to get a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just continue their education. It is. I think the majority of people I know who went to graduate school and got PhDs are not that into science.
Wow.
You know.
So you think they
Yep.
just wanted to stay in college for a few more years
Well,
and just
sure. You don't have to get a real job, right? And you walk out with like a PhD at the end.
yeah.
And like generally for a PhD, once you get accepted, as long as you're not completely incompetent, like you're probably going to graduate, right? Of course, it's like that's number one, David.
I know.
Uh,
Thought,
um, it, as long as you do the work and last the 5 or 6 years, like you're gonna graduate,
yeah.
So it's like it's yeah, a lot of people who go into science aren't like super passionate about doing science.
So well, I was hoping for better, but I'm always the optimist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially you get somebody who's like an activist who gets into science. They got like an agenda they're pushing, whatever that is. They feel like they've got like a moral obligation to get like their opinion recognized as true. You know,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So the whole thing's just it's a big muddy system, and especially I don't know if biology is extra bad. Like I feel like some sciences are probably harder to fake. At least I
Oh
assume.
yeah. I don't know. Like what? What do
I
you
don't know,
think would
like
be the hardest science to fake?
I don't know, like astronomy maybe.
Why
Like
would
you
that
get
be hard? I feel like that'd be so
found
easy.
a star over there, and everybody's like, "There's no star there." Like I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, you could just be like, this, uh, like, I saw this thing using this really, like, most people don't get access to these high-powered telescopes or things like that, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of astronomy isn't like detecting stars, though some of it is. It's like detecting weird aberrations and using some equations to like calculate some laws of physics and
yeah,
shit like that, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm definitely not saying it's impossible, but
and I imagine you could just make all that stuff up, and there's nobody who's checking.
yeah, I
You
know the
know?
biology just seems extra easy though. Somebody's like, "Oh yeah, well I injected these cells with this thing, and this thing happened, and here's some more."
Biology is like the easiest to replicate, right? So
Yeah,
even
but
though it's like easy, it's like also really easy to get busted.
yeah,
Whereas like all some of these other like physics, astronomy, like most of the figures are digital, right? They're like calculated equations and showing like plots and stuff, which you can easily just fabricate the numbers. Whereas biology, a lot of times you at least have to have like some image that you're photoshopping or something.
Yeah, what gets me is how bad the photoshopping is sometimes. It'll be like clone stamp tool, clone stamp tool, clone stamp tool. It's like, come on, like take a minute, at least like clone stamp or like move the stage around and take a new picture, instead of just clone stamping like the same picture 3 times in 3 different cohorts. It's like, come on, put a little
I
effort
like
into
what
it.
David said. Why don't you guys present some papers each week and talk about why it's interesting? This science is bashing is not interesting. Well, goal is to do another podcast. I don't know what you want me to say. Like,
Yeah,
that's not what our podcast is.
yeah,
If you want to find something interesting, like if you want to read a paper, read a paper. Like to me, that's boring. Um, it's just like, of course, we're ignoring everybody because it's a lot of stupid questions. What do you want us to do? You know?
yeah, and we got stuff we want to talk about too, so we'll be time for questions also.
Yeah, it's like don't spam us with questions and ask questions that are like pertinent to what we're talking about that aren't trolling and
Yeah,
like we
trolling.
can always respond,
Yeah,
right? It's when people get trolly, ask questions that aren't pertinent to what we're talking about and stuff like that,
yeah. See,
right?
good demonstration of trolley question at the top.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so it's like, you know, yeah, it is. But like that's why we just, don't feed the trolls.
Right.
It's like if you want to go troll somebody else. We're here to have a conversation. We'll
Yeah.
participate. We'll interact with you. But like there's a certain covenant that we come in here with, and that covenant is like don't troll us and interact with us reasonably and what we're talking about, and we'll respond. If not, we're not going to respond. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. A kit designed for microbial transgenic biosynthesis would be great.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think it just means like making stuff with bacteria, which I mean, technically, most of our kits do. I mean, unless like, except for like, you're not purifying protein. It's basically like we've talked about a protein purification kit, maybe, but it's tricky.
Yeah, we brought up how the science of archaeology is too many quacks, and we responded. We talked to you. We're willing to talk. Um,
Yeah,
what is the loftiest project or goal? When you ask questions like that, we're in the middle of a completely different conversation. It's kind of hard to like segue into your question. That's why we say like, you know, try to like listen and interact with us about what we're talking about, and we're more likely to interact because it's kind of hard to just be like, all right, stop the conversation. This person asked about this. Like, let's answer that question. So
yeah, yeah. The trouble with like making antibiotics and stuff is like
they
sometimes
kill bacteria.
people freak out. Yeah.
They kill bacteria. Antibiotics.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
even if you weren't like making antibiotics specifically, like anything that somebody might
I
consider
know.
to be a
I'm
drug,
teasing.
is gonna
In
make it.
yeast. Because like most antibiotics come from like yeast and other stuff. So, but yeah. Um, Yeah, people have asked us about that before, making antibiotics, and it's like kind of interesting, um, but it's also like not really interesting. It's like interesting from the perspective of like if the world ends, it might be cool to have a strain of this bacteria that makes antibiotic. I mean, this yeast
Yeast.
or whatever that makes antibiotics. But also, it's like I don't know. I'm already stocked on antibiotics, so
Yeah, yeah, and they've already made a bunch of upgrades to penicillin. That's why the whole like bacillin family, like amoxicillin, ampicillin,
yeah,
they're all upgrades to penicillin.
yeah.
Clavamox.
But yeah, like when we're making Odin kits and stuff like that, somebody asked like, why don't you have more options? Like, good lord, you know how hard it is to make a whole class designed around experiments and source all the materials and test it and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like with our human cell kit, David just changed the piece of DNA that you put inside the human cells, and it took months to test it and like figure it out before
Yeah.
we could even source everything and then change the class. So it's like I don't think people consider that like to make a product, it has to be good and it has to be able to scale and it has to make you money and all these things. So it's like a little different than just like I had an idea, I'm just gonna do this. Like
Yeah. That's how you make a crappy kit that doesn't work.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have to think that like if I send this to 100 people, it has to work for each person, or at least 99% or something.
Yeah, and you also don't want it to cost like $1,000. So there's a huge amount of like simplification and stuff because like you may start with like a standard protocol, but that doesn't work in somebody's kitchen. So you've got to really do a lot of work to make it where it can be done by anybody at home.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I mean the thing is that like all the kits we make are generally designed for people who have no experience, so it doesn't really matter if you're ready or not. Just like give it a shot. But yeah, I mean, I think as much as I want to make kits that are for like the apocalypse and stuff to make antibiotics, I am still surprisingly betting on the apocalypse not happening in our lifetime. So, I want to
Yeah,
make kits that like help society right now.
yeah, and I think I think like making penicillin is mostly chemistry and not so much biology. The way it's done, I think you just like take mold, like penicillin mold, mash it up, probably do some kind of chemical extraction with, I don't know, however they do it.
Yeah.
So it's more of a chemistry kit, even though like you're starting with biology. You could make like a biology kit or something, I'm sure. But yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Back on topic, you know, it's interesting how, you know, like we create these sort of systems of authority to like be the people who decide, who's a good person and who's not a good person, and how often those systems get corrupted. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, how do you create a system that's like how do you create a system of judges and the judges themselves are free of judgment and then, you know, have them not get corrupted?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's trying to institute the proper checks and balances, but I think it's also the reward system, and I think that's what's really hard. I mean, where there's people, there will always be corrupt. There will be corruption. I mean, that's. I guess that's true, but I would like to think that like we can have systems that have the proper reward structure so that it's a lot less likely that people are trying to game the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big problem is like there's a lot of people, usually people try to game the system because there's a lot of people who feel like they deserve more or something like that. And in science that's like makes a lot of sense because it's like grant money and there's a lot of people who, you know, like it's the disparity of grant money wealth is huge. And so it's like people want to get grant money, but the only way to get it is like publish papers and do stuff like that. And then so people are more prone to like make fake papers.
Yeah. And you also have like the fundamental like human problems of like, if you're kin to somebody or somebody or you're buddies with the right person, you can get away with a lot more stuff than somebody else could because they'll let you slide or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you end up with a lot of, you know, connection based problems also.
Yeah, I mean I see that, but that doesn't seem like a major like that definitely happens. Nepotism. I don't think you can get rid of nepotism anywhere. you know. But like that's only I think a small part of like the failure of science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's a weird, like, I would like to think that eventually we like solve this and we have like a much better science in the future than we have now. You
Oh,
know,
for sure.
much more reliable and much more like trustworthy and all this sort of stuff. So that like, you know, if we
Yeah, it is.
can just reliably be like, okay, this is almost
Trust is
certainly
a
true.
big issue for us, you know? That's why I mean, biohacking is kind of a, it's kind of built off of a trust issue. You know, the idea is that, like,
Totally.
um, you don't have to trust science or big pharma
Yeah.
because you can actually do the experiments and the science and everything yourself.
Yeah.
Because like, realistically, in any trust-based system, the only person you can really trust is yourself. And
Yeah.
so if you can like trust yourself, you can do the experiments yourself, then like you don't really have to worry about that trust. Like obviously, I trust people and science, you know, and other people who do science and stuff like that. I'm not that bad, but like it gives you that opportunity to be that way, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem really. It's like, I guess the whole idea of science is that, you shouldn't just trust your opinions. You should like empirically test things and then let nature, kind of demonstrate to you yes or no whether this thought is true. Um, but like, if that system gets corrupted, like what system do you like? Is it better to just keep stacking systems on top of systems on top of systems to try and make something, you know, corruption proof, or is it just more gameable the more complicated it is?
Probably. Hmm. Yeah.
So my thought is like, I don't know. For me personally, I just like I trust my personal experience with experiments and stuff over other people saying stuff.
For
But in the
sure.
absence of any personal experience, I'll generally accept that most papers are true if they seem reasonable. And then I'll just like compare a bunch of papers to see if everybody's saying pretty much the same thing. But even that's not a guarantee.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The thing that I like about science is because you get to judge things for yourself. That's kind of like the foundation. But science has like moved really far away from that. Where, yeah, like this person said, when you question science, you're called a conspiracy theorist. It's
Yeah.
like it's what happens when it's just like no, science was meant to be questioned. That's like its whole purpose. And
Right.
that's the good thing about it is that like if somebody says something, I should be able to judge it, you know, no matter who I am, right? Because the knowledge and information is completely available to me.
Yeah. And that's supposed to be the whole idea is that you shouldn't have to take somebody's word for it, right? Like if you have to take somebody's word for it, it's not science anymore. It's just truth proclamation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think that's the good thing about like putting science in the hands of people, is like if you ever want to have trust in science, you need like radical transparency. And you also need like people with some like actual scientific experience who can like, call bullshit or not as is reasonable.
I don't like this idea that people say that science is like it's not it's fluid and stuff like that because like yeah, science changes all the time, but like people use that as an excuse to like make decisions based on bad science.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we don't know a lot about science, you know, but you could survive on Newton's laws of gravity without quantum mechanics. But a lot of science, like, you can do a lot of damage by it being false or it being wrong, right? If you're
Yeah.
talking about medical and biology field and stuff like that, like, you know, a lot of people can die if
Yeah.
something's wrong. And yeah, things change and it's fluid, but when you get people committing fraud, which people do in like medical research journals, or even if just like they don't completely understand it, um, it can lead to a lot of bad stuff happening.
Yeah, or even if it doesn't like kill a bunch of people, even if it just wastes a ton of money researching something, like that Alzheimer's paper that came out not too long ago, you know,
Yeah.
or that they, you know, it's like we spent a lot of time looking at these amyloid plaques. It's like, is it all that research wasted?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's just like, yeah, like it's hard because like science isn't truth. And I think people forget that.
yeah,
Like science isn't truth. And it's hard because um like the science is often mistaken for truth because it gives us insight into what's going on in the universe, right?
yeah, and I think that's yeah, and I think that's a fundamental sort of misconception. Is like, you know,
Hold on,
truth
I'm banning this person.
like in an absolute way. Um,
How do I do that? Hmm.
your wife's boyfriend
Yeah.
is that the person? Oh, I think you got it. I
Yeah.
always get an error whenever you ban somebody. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so there's this, yeah, so there's like, you know, there's truth like in an absolute way, but I think humans are like fundamentally barred from ever experiencing that truth, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like
Like,
because in order to know absolute truth, you need to know everything.
yeah, exactly. And
Until then, you're just guessing. And I don't think people see that. Like the knowledge, the way the world was, you know, in like 1400s, their science was truth also,
yeah,
right? In the 1500s and 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 1950s, 1960s. Like, you know, they didn't know DNA was a thing until what? They won the Nobel Prize in 1962 or something in the 1950s. Like, they
yeah,
didn't even know heritability was through genes that were passed to different offspring,
yeah,
right? But that was like truth. And that's the thing is that, like, there is no, to me, I try to view things as truth, right? I
right.
try to view them as like um how much they influence things. Like what's their probability and how much they influence things, right? Because if you have something that had a high probability of being correct and a low probability of doing any damage, like
Yeah,
it doesn't matter, who cares? A
yeah,
low probability of being correct and a low probability of doing damage, like who cares? But if you have something that's like has a high probability of doing damage in some way to cultural, social, health, medical, like you better damn well like, you
make sure that,
what's going on or just like have good ideas or in the coronavirus thing, I hate to bring that up, but it's like a good example of that, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. What is it? What is the philosophy of truth? The epistemology, something like that. And so, you know, like it's interesting because like nobody can even like there's no way to like get to the truth, you know. It's like separated from humans forever. So we try to get
Yeah.
as close as we can, and so we've created all these systems for sorting between like high probability of truth and low probability of truth things, and that's the best we've got. And
Yeah.
so like you always have so that means you like always have to doubt everything a little bit at least, you know,
Yeah.
no matter
You
how
gotta question
certain
it.
it is or how settled it seems or how great it seems. If you don't doubt it, then you've disconnected yourself from reality, you know. If it's absolutely no doubt, then it's just faith and it's no longer like science.
Wait, what? Hold on. What's this Amanda person saying that they would strongly advise against people doing science alone who are not properly educated? Really? I think you came to the wrong chat if
Yeah,
that's your point of view. Because I think it's literally kind of like the definition of what we do is to
yeah, Yeah, I mean,
Biohacking, it's literally to make this stuff accessible to anybody, even those who don't have the proper education.
like me. Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. I mean,
know,
I started doing genetic experiments. No education, no proper setting. And everything went okay. I do think people should be careful with stuff. Obviously, don't hurt yourself. Don't be dumb. But that doesn't change anything. People will hurt themselves and people will be dumb. But I mean, people also kill themselves on four-wheelers. So what am I going to do?
it's pretty hard to kill yourself biohacking, though. I mean, or even hurt yourself. You have to be doing some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like,
but
if you're trying to make like, I don't know, GMO wheat or something, I don't think you're going to die from it.
yeah.
Yeah. What's the third one?
Science is making the unknown known. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to help us sort, like what's like total bullshit from what's probably true. Uh,
yeah.
self-taught,
Categorize things.
yeah, self-taught is a difficult thing for me because like, what does self-taught mean in the age of the internet? Like, I practiced a lot. I talked to people who knew stuff and they told me what to do. I read a bunch of papers and protocols. I read a bunch of like educational material and I watched a bunch of lectures. So is that self-taught? Like to me, self-taught is like I just went to the shed and started poking around and figured out genetic engineering. And it's not exactly what happened. So like I just read a bunch of stuff. I made my own curriculum rather than going to a university and having them teach me, right? But
But
it's
even
not.
then, if you go to graduate school, a lot of the stuff you learn is self-taught. It's
Yeah.
like when I went to graduate school, I think I took, I don't know, 6 classes that were quarter. We were on the quarter system because U Chicago's bougie. Um, and so I took 6 classes that weren't full semesters, and that's it, right? And being there for 5 years, right? So
Well,
most of it is, I mean, there's obviously people, I mean, but it's in anything you do generally. You have mentors and people that you communicate with and talk to. And yeah, it's a tough thing, like self taught. Like, I think there's always contributions from,
yeah,
other people more or less.
I think you can be self-taught in some things. Like you could be a self-taught, I don't know, blacksmith. You just like kind of knew that when you heat up metal, you can hit it and then it changes.
Yeah.
And you could go out
Yeah,
there.
that's what I was thinking. Or like martial arts or something.
Yeah, exactly. You could just like do something enough that you figure out some stuff, or like go
Yeah.
pluck a guitar long enough that you eventually figure out a way to make it make the sounds you want. But yeah, yeah. I mean, is it
Self
self-taught?
learning is great, but it's slow, is the problem. It's like if you're trying to learn, I know this because like since I left academia and started the Odin and trying to like recapitulate all these experiments that people have done in the sciences and stuff like that, like it's a lot slower to teach yourself. You learn from first principle, which is way better because then you could like break everything down and
Yeah,
understand exactly what's needed. But also, it's just so slow.
yeah,
It's so much easier to just have somebody be like, all right, here's how you do it. And you try it like 2 times and they're like, this is what you did wrong. Do it again. And then you know how to do it instead of having to do it like 20 times to figure out everything that you did wrong. And you're just like, oh, geez. Um, so yeah, it's good. I love self-teaching because you learn things from first principle, but I also hate it because it's just like so slow.
yeah, yeah. It definitely is a big time sink. But yeah, and as far as equipment, like that's unfortunately like fundamental to biology. Like there's always going to be some equipment that's required, but like um, the Odin has some pretty cheap equipment, and a lot of times you can build stuff or find stuff used. If you don't just like go try to buy a brand new thing from Sigma, usually you can get much better deals.
You know, but it's also like, what hobby do you have that doesn't cost money?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
even if your
like
hobby is like playing video games,
you have to
you're
buy the
gonna,
video games, the console, like all the stuff. Um, I don't think reinventing the wheel is waste of time. I think it's just I think it's good because like if you learn how to reinvent the wheel, then you could also have a better understanding of how to invent the next thing. But it's
yeah,
a lot slower. If you're just trying to, make a car, all you want to know is like how a wheel works.
yeah,
But if you're trying to really understand it, then self-teaching is important. But
yeah,
self-teaching can be really slow.
yeah. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with no matter what life form you modify can still be considered cruel. Because like I modify E. coli like all the time, and I, I don't think any reasonable person would be like killing E. coli is cruelty. You know?
Yeah, like there's so many life forms that don't even have nervous systems or brains or anything like that. So
Yeah,
like that's confusing.
yeah,
Maybe
and
you
I'm
mean
sure.
no animal or something?
Yeah, I'm sure there are some people out there who are like killing bacteria is ethically wrong, but those people would be considered extremists by everybody else. Like
It's
most
impossible
people,
to go through life without killing bacteria.
I wash my hands with soap to kill bacteria.
Yeah.
Well, that's not war crimes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Although I will say it's slightly sad, like when you have like some bioluminescent bacteria, and they're glowing, and you like lice them, and it's just like this wave of like lights going out hits. I feel that one a little bit more than like just a cloud of E. coli and some liquid.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh, their lights went out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so David and I, we've been working on a stem cell project. You
yeah,
know, right
yeah,
now a few weeks ago, we took we took fat from our stomachs and isolated the stem cells and started growing them. And we're differentiating them into different tissue types and stuff like that. So that's been our current project we're working on. But, we're always working on a million different things just to figure out the world.
yeah. And it's interesting because I think the adipose cells are finally starting to shape up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that they just wouldn't, but I think maybe they were just slow, or maybe they were just slow to fill up, or something. Um, and maybe, like you said, maybe the insulin or something was expired, so maybe it just took more doses over time.
Fruit flies, I don't know. They're really annoying. We've been working with nematodes, C. elegans,
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But fruit flies can be kind of annoying.
yeah, we'll,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll probably have something for the nematodes, but yeah, fruit flies also can get the EPA on you, like any kind of bug that can escape into the environment. You start making bugs and losing them, EPA might get mad.
Yeah, fruit flies. They're the worst.
Yeah, you start having a bunch of GFP fruit flies emerging from various points around the world, and we're selling the make your own GFP fruit flies kit. I'm pretty sure we get a call from the government.
Yeah.
Giant cows, mega spiders, please no. Nobody wants mega spiders.
Hmm.
Yeah, glowing cats is more difficult than you might think, unless you go GFP. But even then, trust me, I've been trying to make glow dogs for a while now.
People like stuff that glows. I mean, so do I.
I mean, I get it. I do too, right? I've never made something glow that I wasn't like, that's pretty fucking cool. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I really look forward, like seeing what people are interested in and like the kind of things people want to create. I really do look forward to like the time in the future when that stuff is like really accessible and reasonably doable, and people start like making cool stuff. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
far out it is, but I think people are going to do a lot of interesting stuff.
Is there any chance anything more advanced than yeast or bacteria happen with our kids? We have a lot of kids without yeast and bacteria. Check our website.
Yeah, glowing
Um,
trees is probably never going to actually work, but
yeah, that was
yeah,
a
like
good pitch, though. You know, the glowing plant project. They could have raised a lot more money.
yeah,
I think they ended up raising like $2 million.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah, and
but
like you can technically make a tree glow, but it's so dim that you can't even really see it.
yeah,
You know, you just got to put it in a more. There's a reason there's no bioluminescent plants in the world.
we're kind of working on plant stuff now, but um, yeah, it's a process. Everything's a process. Everything takes time. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I do
I mean,
think
that's what I think people, yeah, people just want. I think the hard part that people don't understand about a company is that you have to be able to scale it and it's got to be functional in a scalable manner, and logistically you got to make sure it works and everything like that. And it's a lot more complicated than just like having an idea. You know, I think it's because the whole digital online space is so like you just write a computer program and you put it online and then people use it, and if it like crashes, so what? Just restart it. You
yeah,
know, it's like you buy some video game for your phone and it crashes. It's just like, so what? Right?
yeah,
It doesn't, because it's not in the real world, there's like no consequences. And like
yeah,
the
and also
distribution, there's no cost for distribution. So it's just like totally different.
and you're also not subject to the rules of reality. So you can make a computer program that can do anything you can imagine a computer program could do. But like you can design like a genetic engineering thing, and sometimes it just doesn't work. you know it's like even if your design's perfect, like biology's full of a lot of unknowns. So even if everything you did was right, there might just be some unknown shit that you could not have predicted you know
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yo, Mike Jones, stop with the hormone stuff, or else we're gonna like ban you. Seriously.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I do think it's interesting because like everybody kind of imagines like in the future people will, I don't know, use genetic engineering to just like make Gattaca or something. um, but I think people misunderstand how diverse people's interests are. People are going to
Yeah.
make like strawberry flavored coconuts and glowing praying mantises and stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think a lot more people are going to make. It's going to be a lot more like whimsy than people expect,
Oh yeah, for sure. You know? I mean, that's usually what happens.
right?
It's like right now we're still everything is corporatized, so it's like genetic engineering has just been corporatized. So everything people have seen has been like a certain way. It's been like medical based. It's been this, you
It's
know.
agriculture, medicine, yeah.
And once it starts to be less corporatized and like decentralized, I think we'll see a lot more, like you said, like creative, different, unique, whimsical things come out of genetic engineering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't think not in my lifetime. Like unless you're a lot older than I'm thinking, I think definitely in our lifetime.
fast with technology, just
Yeah,
because like distribution networks and knowledge distribution is much easier nowadays. So
I think
like things can change really fast.
Yeah, and I think everybody assumes things are farther away than they are. Like when the CRISPR babies thing happened, it was pretty much exactly when I thought it was going to happen. And everybody's like, "We're still 20 years away, right?" It's like, no, why would we be 20 years away? And so I think a lot of it is like people. Yeah, I think people like are plotting like like a linear curve and not an exponential curve. But like the better we get at this stuff, the easier it is to get better at this stuff. You know, and the more distributed this stuff gets, the easier it gets to be distributed. So unless there's like some big law banning genetic engineering with people or something like that, like regular people, then I don't see why it won't continue to grow at a fast pace and eventually become like really popular. Like there's a lot more people doing genetic engineering than there were when I first started. You
Yeah,
know,
same.
and
Yeah.
that's in the what 6 7 years, something like that.
Until you, James, like there's fucking kits on our website for things not yeast or bacteria. We
Yeah,
sold a frog genetic engineering kit. Like, you know, like I don't know what else you want. You want to engineer human cells? Go buy the kit on our website.
yeah, yeah. We might have plants and mushrooms by next spring.
Yeah, it's like I don't like. What
Yeah,
are we missing here?
yeah,
What do you want to genetically modify? That oh, are you the bugs person?
yeah.
It's kind of obsessed with bugs. It's funny how
Uh,
people just like always ask questions about their one interest.
yeah, I guess they figure if they just hit us enough, eventually we'll respond. But honestly, it's not a bad strategy. It does seem to work, even if the response is just, "Hey, that's getting annoying." Uh, the genetic engineering mushrooms thing, that's something we're working on. It's probably going to be a slow process, though. That one's tricky.
Yeah, yeah, genetically engineering mushrooms. We're working on. We're trying to figure it out. It's a lot of the protocols that you find that scientists have done are very crappy. Like they're not well documented, and the methods are just you know out of date and everything. So
Some
we'll
use like
see.
enzymes that you can't even buy anymore because they're not manufactured anymore, crap like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, the pig heart thing, I think they CRISPR modified the pig beforehand to like remove endogenous viruses or something. So I mean, it was with CRISPR, but the transplant itself didn't really have anything to do with CRISPR, other than like they wanted to eliminate some potential risk associated with xenotransplantation.
yeah, mushroom kits would be interesting. The problem with a lot of these kits like that and stuff is like mushroom kits would probably take a long. That's why like most people work with bacteria and yeast is because like they grow fast,
Yeah,
you know. Whereas to, like grow some mycelium or something like that, or even a mushroom, like it can take weeks or months, right? So it's just like
yeah, especially if you want to actually fruit it and not just get some mycelium.
yeah, in the world we live in, like that's pretty slow. Most people don't have that type of patience.
Yeah, same thing with plants, or even worse. Like
Yeah,
yeah, you make your GMO plant and then wait 6 months, for it to get this big.
yeah,
Yeah, and then so by the time you get like, and it might be mosaic, and you have to take a seed off of it, so you're like 2 years in now because you
mm,
gotta wait till spring or something. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's the thing is like, mushrooms are at least a little better than that. Um,
yeah, for sure.
but
Yeah,
like some of them are hard to fruit and stuff like that. Although I guess you could use something like oyster or something that's like supposed to be easier. But can I make glow in the dark nematodes? I mean that's harder than you think, but not a terrible idea. I wouldn't mind it. We're trying some other stuff right now, but
you
yeah,
know,
I mean, I
have
don't
to look.
know. Yeah, it sounds fun. I'd love to see them like. I mean, they're annelids and they're glowworms. I'm pretty sure they're annelids also. So Yeah, so there's a whole lot of stuff we'd like to do, right? No, we're probably not going to just take custom requests for fungal primers. We offer primers for fungal identification, like barcoding primers.
If you
But
want to order primers, just go order them yourself.
yeah, exactly. There's no reason for us to be like a middleman for that. You can just go onto like all these different websites that sell primers and order them, and they'll send them to your house. And you never bat an eye.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in the U.S., you might be in Germany or something, in which case they might not like you doing that. But
Yeah. I mean, it's not that we want to do anything with mushrooms. Um, it's like asking people when they buy a computer, like, what do they want to do with the computer or something?
yeah,
You know, it's like me, myself, I'm just using this as a way to show people how it's done, a way to express myself, right? I'm not necessarily trying to make a mushroom that's big or tasty or anything like that, though that can be done. Um, I think those things are less interesting to me. Number one, because a lot of them like that we're not there technologically yet, and so like it's not as feasible. Um, it's like if you want to make a mushroom that tastes like bacon, let's say, you
yeah,
know, um, like in order to do that, you have to try to get all the genes that would make it taste like bacon into the mushroom.
right,
And they may or may not work. It may or may not express and whatever. So it's like taking a computer from the 1980s and trying to do what it does now.
yeah,
It's like, no, it's a computer from the 1980s. What it needs is it needs the software, it needs the operating system, it needs the internet. Um, and so we're kind of just waiting on those things. And in the meantime, we're making all the tools accessible so that people can do stuff with them when the time arises or even now. It just takes effort, a
yeah.
good amount.
And that's the thing is like we're in a place where you know you can do a lot of interesting stuff um, if you like the process, like if you like uh, you know doing biology stuff, but if you just want like the end goal and you want to be able to just like push a button and the end goal happens, it's not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. What is the relation between art and biology? I don't, you know, less and less I view the stuff I do as science because science has a particular goal in mind, and that goal is generally to, um, like uncover some knowledge or something like that. Um, to me, that's only kind of interesting. Like uncovering knowledge for the sake of uncovering knowledge is almost like, I don't know. It's just like digging a hole for digging a hole. It doesn't really have. A, it's not interesting to me. Some people like to do that.
Yeah,
Some people like to run. You know, I'm not really one of those people who's like into running. If I run, I like to play a sport, soccer or something. So for me, it's kind of the same way with science, where it's like doing science for science's sake just seems not that exciting. So I do it for self-expression. I do it to try to, break boundaries and disrupt systems. Uh, I do it to try to build a foundation for the future. And to me, these are all things that art does, and not necessarily science, right? Like art challenges conventions and like pushes society forward and challenges you as a person when you're doing it. And that to me that's a lot more interesting. So generally I view the stuff I do as pretty much art and not science, or biology or whatever. I don't really associate myself with science, like scientists in any way. I don't publish. Um,
Not
even though
anymore.
we developed a lot of stuff and found out a lot of stuff, uh, to me, it's just not worth it. It's not interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, you know, I see science more as a tool than I see myself as a scientist. So like I changed brake pads on my truck because I want my truck to drive around, right, and have good brakes. But I don't like, so I did some mechanics, but I don't see myself as a mechanic. So
Yeah.
like I do some science to create the things that I want to create. But I don't necessarily see myself as much of an artist either. But to me, it's more like um, there are like things I want to make, like dogs I want to make, and things like that. And so like science is a tool to do those things. Like it's like a method for solving the problems that I need to solve before I can make the thing work.
Yeah, I think David has a lot more goals in mind than me. Me, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'm not fucking around just for the sake of it either.
Yeah.
It's like some people are just like, I'm just gonna fuck around for the sake of it. Me, I like to have a purpose. I like to like. There's a goal, and it's usually like trying to fuck the system or inspire people or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more, I guess, ephemeral, less physical.
Yeah. But that's okay. You know, everybody, not everybody has to have the same goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think it's interesting to see all the other people's goals. But I think one of the more interesting things is like, um, when people really get a hold of this stuff, and like I think it's going to hit like an inflection point at some point. So it's like kind of doing this, like the number of people getting into this sort of stuff, and I think it's going to hit some point where like it really starts to climb and go crazy, and then people are going to be like, oh yeah, this is like a normal thing, for people to have access to. One of these,
Totally. I think that's when like the infrastructure and everything gets there. So it's just like,
yes, you could, for Stephanie's question. Yeah, like we know exactly what genes cause the sort of smashed face for people that don't know that term. And yeah, you could fix it. It wouldn't necessarily be easy, but it's feasible.
yeah. I think that's a
Yeah.
big part. The big problem with like genetic engineering right now is like a lot of this stuff isn't easy. Um, it's feasible, and so making it easy is like more important than
Uh-huh.
making a golden ant.
100%.
It's
100%.
like, right, at least to me,
Yeah.
because if I just make a golden ant, I just make a golden ant. But if I make all this stuff easy and more feasible for people to do, then it's like you've invested in thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of projects.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. Like a lot of people get into biohacking because they have like, and I was the same way, right? They have like a thing that they want to do or make or be, right? And so it's like, but like this sort of generation of biohackers, the whole thing is like infrastructure is the number one thing for sure. Like
Yeah.
all the biohackers out there doing anything real are working on infrastructure, you know, like making things accessible, easy, doable, like that's how you make a difference. That's how you make people, you know, like you invest in the next generation of people doing this stuff, and those people will do much better stuff than us. And if we don't do it, they'll have to, and the whole thing will just wait around.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine, it's thinking about stuff like that. It's like when you think about an iPhone, the first iPhone that was made, it's like so many things had to fall into place before that could happen. Um, and it's just like
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's like there had to be so many things before that, and I think it's like a very similar place, right? You're at one of those stepping stones where you're waiting for society, technology, everything to catch up. Because
Yeah.
once it does catch up, then it's like, all right, now this technology can be utilized completely, right? But an iPhone, before there was like 3G or whatever,
Yeah.
would have been pointless, right? Or an iPhone that like couldn't play music or things like that. And so like all these things kind of had to like coalesce in terms of infrastructure and
Yeah.
technology before, we could enjoy iPhones.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, because I remember in like 1999 or 2000 or something, I bought a tablet. It was like this Microsoft tablet, and it wasn't actually that bad. Um, but back then, like it just used regular when there were no operating systems designed for tablets and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
like it didn't it wasn't as well as it could be, and we weren't as connected to the internet back then as we were now. So like it wasn't as enjoyable to use.
Yeah.
Because basically you're just using it as a big computer and not a tablet.
Yeah. Battery life sucked then, and yeah.
But either way, like what it is that like nobody picked it up, right? It wasn't that important, right? People weren't really into tablets and they didn't until much later,
Yeah.
till, 10, 15 years later. And it's like that was all just because the infrastructure wasn't there. Like the
Yeah.
idea was there and it was a good idea, but like there was no infrastructure there to support this technology to give people the experience that they wanted with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, once you build it, then it opens up a huge number of other possibilities that like we haven't even imagined, that like other people will imagine and create. And that's the thing, So you just have to like generally support that future, you know, and just expect that other people will have great ideas and implement them once they have the tools.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really hard to guess on how long that'll take.
Yeah, it's like not really controllable or like understandable, It's like the first computers. Um, you have no idea when society and culture is going to accept these things. And so like it's
Yeah.
you're waiting on society and culture, which aren't like movable objects, right? They
Yeah.
move by their own whims and fancies. So it's just like you're basically just waiting around until things happen. You can try. You can try to, convince people. Um,
But usually that takes
but
millions of dollars.
yeah, it's not just millions of dollars. It like it's still just like that influence can only go so far, right?
Yeah. And I think so. Like people that are like centuries or whatever, I think they're way off, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely. I mean, from the time from like the first computer until like computers became popularized, you're talking like 20 years, maybe like 25, 30 years. But that was also before the time where like knowledge and information could be passed around super fast.
100%.
Obviously, there were no
So yeah.
computers.
So we're building on top of that infrastructure, which helps
So
you
it'll
build the
be
infrastructure
so
back.
faster. So like my own personal guess would be sometime in the next 20 years, you know,
Yeah.
definitely in the next 50.
Yeah. And you get some like get like some you know, like right now I think we're kind of like in that same place where like I don't know, like Steve Jobs and them were stealing parts from IBM or whatever to like put together their first computers to try and sell to people, you know, that sort of place. And so we still got a little time, but it's not like lifetimes away.
Yeah, I don't think that. Definitely not. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a
Yeah.
little more optimistic just because I see. the rate of adoption of like genetic engineering by people, and it's like something people want and something people are interested in. So right now it's just like needing that zeitgeist.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's also changing, like in the general culture, like just the idea of like GMOs. Like 10 years ago, GMOs were like everybody's scared of GMOs, and everybody's scared of clones, and everybody's scared of stem cells. Um, but like I see a lot of it changing. Like there's still people that are like anti-GMO or whatever, but like I was looking at a Triscuit ad the other day on Facebook, and they're like proudly non-GMO Triscuits or whatever, and the comments were all just like, bashing their anti-GMO stance basically. So I really feel like that's shifting. Like there's a lot more people out there that aren't afraid of genetic modification than there used to be. Like I think when the idea first hit, it was like this could be terrible, and then people are like, it hasn't been terrible so far. What do we got?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the general sort of zeitgeist I think is shifting away from being afraid of this technology.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, you know, it uh it needs to be in, that's why I was kind of pissed when that TV show came out called Biohackers.
Yeah.
It was like it's so funny because there's this guy who wrote this book, oh God, probably like almost 20 years ago now, called Biopunk.
Oh, I don't think
It
I've read
was
it.
like before biohacking really even started, and it was about the people who like were pretend biohackers.
Interesting.
He never did anything. He probably came up. He came upon like the DIY bio movement and stuff like that. Um, and Yeah, I guess it inspired him to write a book, but it's like way too early. Nothing had even happened at that time or anything like that. And the movie Biohackers comes out, our TV show, and like it's just it wasn't as interesting and inspiring as like the movie Hackers,
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because Hackers came out during the zeitgeist of like the computer hacker and the computer, the late '90s or whatever.
Yeah, I still think biohacking's waiting for its like neuromancer, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so like we're kind of waiting for that zeitgeist and people are keep jumping on it and they're like, "All right, here it comes. I'm going to, do this thing, write this book, make this TV show." And it's always like I think Biohacker TV show, I think they did pretty good in terms of ratings and stuff like that. I wasn't really into the show, but like um
Yeah, it ended up
yeah,
just being like a medical drama kind of
it's just
thing.
like, here we go, we're going to do it, and it's just like, ah, no, like there has to be that cultural aspect of it that makes it.
I think it would have been better as a movie than a series, you know,
Probably, totally,
because
yeah.
like they started out like they had a lot of biohackery stuff. They had like bioluminescent cannabis and you know stuff, people doing implants or whatever. So they had a lot of biohackery stuff. But then they like did everything that they could find in the news in like the first 3 episodes, and then the rest of it is just like the main character is like going up against like this like corrupt professor
Yeah,
scientist person, and it's just like student versus teacher science ethics battle, but it really isn't really biohackery. Like if you removed all the biohacker stuff from biohackers, it wouldn't change the show at all. It would just be
yeah, totally.
like institutional scientists fighting each other. One's older, one's younger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just like still waiting on that.
Yeah. And I think part of what made hackers cool was the characters were cool, and like they had fundamentally different philosophies. Like the hackers versus
Also, it was just like
it was
about
silly.
computer hacking. Like that was the story, the plot
Yeah,
line, and everything, right? Like it's centered around hacking computers, whereas like biohackers plot line didn't center around biohacking.
exactly.
It wasn't like, oh no, we need to like biohack this thing so then we could like, do all this stuff. No, it's just kind of like some of
Yeah,
these people are into biohacking.
Yeah, it was definitely backdrop and not a central theme for sure.
Yeah.
If you like removed all the hacking parts from the movie Hacking, there's what, some high schoolers that exist. That's it.
I wish I had some cuts from the documentary that I've been working on this computer, but I don't think I do.
Yeah,
I want to show, you know, at Biohack the Planet, I hope to show
that'd
some
be
of the
cool.
documentary we've been working on, and it's pretty cool. I mean, I think like the good thing is what I'm learning is that like a good um like a good film or TV show is like 50% like good footage.
Makes sense. Seems
Like if you
reasonable.
have good footage and beautiful footage, like that's like half the battle, you
Makes sense.
know? God damn it,
Yeah,
I hate Google Drive search. It's terrible. Oh, I'm under the Odin for some reason. That's weird.
yeah. For the engineer's question, what's the current state of things? What are the capabilities? I mean, it's really broad and difficult because it's like there's an engine. It's like any other engineering problem, right? It really depends on what exactly you want to do. Like you can do some really interesting stuff if you're doing the right thing, and you can do something that you imagine or you might imagine is really similar or kind of on the same level of complexity that's totally impossible, you know? And so it's really hard to say in any kind of a concise way what can be done. Like there's a lot of things that can be done. And there's a lot of things that can't be done, but it all depends on exactly what it is, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And also how much effort you can put in. There's a lot of things that are doable technically, but not really feasible, right? Like flying car. You can make a car fly, but it won't get you to work, so run out of gas, and it might be impossible to control or something.
but yeah, I really want to. I'm excited about the documentary. It's the footage is great. It's just putting it into a good coherent story, um, which can be
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. I think part of what biohacking needs. I think there've been some good documentaries. Obviously, Unnatural Selection was good, but I think it needs some good fiction, like some good, compelling, like future stories where people can
Well,
sort of
yeah,
like,
I mean, it just needs culture, right? I think that's the
yeah,
thing.
100%.
Is like it needs just art in general, so like
Yeah,
TV shows, movies, books, you know, paintings,
totally.
whatever.
Like you think cyberpunk or like hacker has become an archetype, you
Yeah,
know? Like you can watch like a heist movie and there's the hacker, who's now an archetypical character that everybody can identify and know what that means when you say that person's the hacker of the group, you know?
yeah,
And so I think, there'll be a point where like biohacker is an additional archetype, but like right now it's hard to imagine what that means because like the hacker in a heist movie wouldn't make sense if the heist was held in like the 1800s. Like what are they hacking?
yeah,
you know? So like I think a biohacker in a similar kind of setting has to be set in a future where biology is more integrated into the system, you know, like maybe the security vaults smell you or something because they have like organic components that have been engineered
yeah.
to
Just
fit.
I think those things is like is it's not really easy to predict or
Yeah,
because everybody, with computers and everything like that, everybody tried to predict all this stuff and nobody had any idea what it would
totally,
turn into. And so it's just like the digital world. And I think it's the same with the biological world. Nobody
totally.
will have any idea, what it will turn into. And I think that it's usually the best part of these things is that like it is unpredictable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
I think,
documentary is about we filmed it ourselves. Well, I mean, we had film crews and stuff that we hired, but it basically follows David, myself, and Daria. And it's kind of character driven, but also has experiments and stuff that we've done. Um, yeah,
yeah. And I think some of these chat footages and stuff are going to wind up in there, right?
yeah, it definitely.
So you
There's
can see your
definitely
name
some chat
if
footage.
you comment
Huh.
at the right moment.
I think a lot of it's older from like the COVID vaccine stuff.
Yeah,
Some of the modern, live streams might make it, but I think yeah, a lot of it's like
yeah, you
yeah,
know. And I think as more people, like to Zane's comment here, I think as more people get aware of like what possible things could happen with the technology, like um, it gets more realistic to kind of start imagining stories that fit into that space, that involve those kinds of tools. Um, and so, I think as the world evolves into like sort of a biotech world, I think the idea of like a biohacker will start to like click and make a lot more sense to a lot more people. Um, and I think it'll all just sort of like grow into itself and sort of develop. But right now, it's like still putting down the root system.
yeah, because it's also like having Hollywood make a movie about biohackers is hard when like biohackers aren't like super mainstream and popular, right?
Yeah,
And so it's like, but it's the thing is like everybody jumps on the bandwagon. It's like
yeah,
that, I think, in
totally.
most of society in the world for like most of things, where
Yeah,
it's like nobody is willing to accept things until everybody accepts things.
all right. I think I
You
saw some stats, like somebody done some statistics on it. It's like 2% or something. Like once a thing breaks like 2% adoption, 2% of the population adopts it, it like rushes to like 15%, and then it like takes off after that and like really gets crazy. And then like
Yeah,
everybody accepts it. But yeah, so it's like, like I was definitely not going to be the first person to buy an iPhone. Uh, but like eventually everybody had iPhones, and it was like, my old job in the oil field bought me a phone because they're like, here, you need this to do your job. So,
yeah, yeah. It
and
just
so it
depends
just
when it
like,
becomes normal.
you know, yeah, I think you'll see like a small number will be early adopters, but then like once everybody's got stuff, it'll be something everybody's got.
Yeah,
It might be slower in some countries where a lot more biotech regulations exist, but I think people will just start undoing them.
yeah. And I mean, usually the regulations aren't very strong. It's very few countries that at least try to enforce any of these things. And so it's just like it's easy if you wanted to and you had access to the resources to do biohacking in any country.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's only going to get easier as more and
Yeah,
more infrastructure is built.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean it's interesting because like I'll have to read Biopunk. What's the general theme of Biopunk? I've never read it.
Neither have I. No, it's nonfiction.
Oh, that's why I haven't read it. I like fiction better.
Yeah, it's nonfiction.
Okay, well I'm disappointed now.
Yeah, yeah, it's nonfiction. Like I said, it was written. I don't know,
Yeah,
around 15 years ago, maybe more. About
early DIY bio.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, well that's fine.
before anybody had done anything like anything. I think it might have been around the time of the Dremel Fuge or like slightly before that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blade Runner is probably still the best, like biohacker, biopunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Existence was good too. I liked that one.
Yeah. Blade Runner is my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Just like
everybody.
everything about it, just like the cinematography, the mood, you know,
Yeah.
there's so many things that capture you in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I even like
I
the
heard
second
this new
one.
movie that came out that's I heard was pretty biohackery.
Really?
Yeah, is that a new movie with Kristen Stewart?
I hadn't heard of it.
Um, yeah.
Any idea what it's called?
Crimes of the Future.
Crimes of the Future.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
And
Body.
I think we talked about it where it's like these people do these live surgeries and
Oh.
like I heard it's
Oh.
like kind of a little I don't know, gruesome a little bit, but also like
It's directed by David Cronenberg, so
yeah.
yeah, I guess it would be. Okay. I'll check it out.
But I heard it was really biohackery,
Yeah.
you know, because it was like these people who are trying to make all these modifications to their bodies.
I'll check it out. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
The but yeah, it's one of those things I think that like people don't even like know what stories to write yet. Like I can't imagine that world. You
Yeah.
know, it's like all these horror movies made in the '90s. Just like wouldn't happen now. It's like, oh no, there's a guy in a mask out front. Everybody just get your phone out and call the police. It's like, oh no, he cut the phone line. Who cares?
Yeah.
So it's like you can't even really imagine what to make, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Be interesting. I look forward to seeing where people go with it because I think that there's like a big lack of creativity with a lot of stuff. You get like Gattaca, which is okay, but pretty meh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cronenberg is usually not for the weak. It's I usually don't like horror. Like I like some horror. I like scary. I don't usually like horrible. So like I like scary movies. I don't necessarily want like Saw or anything. I've never seen any of those.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't like slashers or people getting mutilated or suffering.
It's not supposed to be though like a horror.
Okay.
Like at least from what I know, like all the gore and stuff is like from
Like surgical
um
procedures and stuff.
yeah,
Okay, well I'm fine with that.
at
Yeah,
least
like
that's what I hear.
yeah, blood and body parts and stuff don't freak me out, but like suffering does. I don't like that.
Kids these days would TikTok their friends getting killed by the mass killer while screaming World Star.
Probably, honestly.
For World Star. Yeah, I
Uh,
feel you.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know what Elon Musk tactics are.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, is that just like have billions of dollars?
I mean, that would probably
Sorry,
work.
I can't accomplish that one.
Yeah, never
Yeah,
know. Might get lucky.
but anyway, if y'all have any questions now, if you have any random questions, throw them out.
Yeah,
Feel free to while we finish up today.
yeah. I'm almost done with my liter of coffee, so I gotta pee. I wonder how long the delay is between when we say something and somebody types something, and then it goes from whatever platform they're on through Restream to us.
Oh, and then it comes back. Yeah. I mean, even on YouTube, there was a delay when people commented directly in the chat,
Yeah,
right? I imagine it's not too much different from that delay, but I think I remember it being around like 30 seconds or something.
yeah.
You know,
He tweeted that CERN was made by Demon Tech the other day. So, oh, that's the Elon Musk tactics. Just be silly.
minus Uracil Media. Um, the thing is, it's really expensive
Yeah.
because you have to have it custom made or make it yourself. So I don't know if we'll get minus Uracil Media anytime soon. Tweet about it, never sleep. I think it's fake that Elon Musk never sleeps.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, or that he like works hard. I think it's a there's this like common fallacy that these people like work hard or like harder than anybody else, which I think is totally wrong. Um, maybe Elon Musk has sleeping problems. I don't know, but like there are zero human beings that I've ever met in my life, and I've met a lot of human beings that can like survive on like any less sleep than anybody else.
yeah,
And
especially
unless
for
they have like a little bit of insomnia, and usually you have to catch up anyway, you know. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you just take a bunch of naps, that it doesn't really like give you any extra time. You know, you're just spacing it out.
yeah, I think the other thing is also just like Elon Musk started with a lot of money, you know, like he got lucky with PayPal, like all those people did,
Yeah,
and then when he had millions of dollars at his disposal, it's a lot easier to like do things,
yeah,
you know, and so it's just like, eh,
yeah. And you can always pay people with millions of dollars to work hard. You know, but somebody was asking about. Oh man, we have a genetic tool. What is the delivery system? What would it allow the body to best uptake, or is it region specific, like a steroid? So like, it depends on a bunch of stuff. But like, you can do things that have local effects, right? Um, but you can also try and do systemic things, but that's way harder usually. So like the gene therapies that they have, they usually deliver with viruses, and like if you want to inject it into your eye, like they do with some of the treatments for blindness and stuff, you know, it affects your retina, you know, and it's region specific, but that's because like the virus doesn't just like spread all over. But you know, anything you inject in people tends to like localize in your liver and stuff like that. So some things are just harder than others, but it's like it's a really complicated system of parts, and they all interact differently. So it all depends on exactly what you want to do. You know, unfortunately, the answer is it's really complicated. Let's see. Buy something with his crypto only to realize the coin crashed right as they're at the checkout counter. That would be funny.
yeah, I have sleeping issues, so I know definitely catches up to you for sure. It's like one of those things like you die without sleep. It's
Yeah.
like eating, like you can't go extended periods of time on a lack of sleep. It's just not possible. So all these people are like, "Oh, they sleep 4 hours a night." It's like, it's fake, you know?
Yeah. For how long? For how many nights?
Yeah, 3 nights in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. And like if you're like, oh, I work 100-hour week, it's like, okay, how often? You know?
Yeah, nobody works that much.
You did that one time? Okay, I'm impressed. Yeah. And you know, yeah, I sleep like a champ. As soon as I hit the pillow, I'm gone.
I don't know how you drink so much caffeine. It's just super weird.
I'm telling you, I'm a naturally sleepy person, so I've got to drink so much caffeine to keep me normal. And as soon as the caffeine goes away, I'm unconscious.
If you were designing an experiment to detect life on Mars, how would you go about that? Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, I don't know. It's very difficult. You're probably looking for some sort of organic. You have to understand that like Mars has no organic molecules, right? Everything there is inorganic because it's all rock and CO2 and everything like that, salts. Um, so the obvious thing would be to just try to detect some sort of organic molecules.
Which I
Um,
mean, they have detected like some methane and stuff in the atmosphere,
yeah.
but some of that can be created by like other processes.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, things like I don't know, carbohydrates, proteins, amino acids,
Maybe
you
some lignin
know,
or something.
like that's what actually creates soil, right? So like soil is just decomposed organic matter,
Yeah,
right? Otherwise it's just like rock and sand. So like we're basically just living on top of giant piles of decomposed organic matter.
yeah. And you know, and it's also like a different question because like life could be a broader definition than what we might consider life. Like maybe there's some sort of crystal life that we have never had no experience with, you know.
I've been
Uh,
watching too much Star Trek, man.
hey, but or maybe there's like
An
dead
entity.
life, you know. Like what about ancient life? You know, what about like microbe fossils? Does that count? And that'd be a lot harder to find. Like if you found like yeah, one does seem tricky. But I think probably the easiest thing is like get a bunch of dirt, put it in a bucket, bring it back to Earth, and look at it really hard with a lot of different. That's what I would do.
Yeah, we haven't been able to send anything back from Mars yet, so
Yeah, seems tricky for sure.
yeah, it'd all have to be automated, the whole thing,
Yeah, and then
landing,
relaunch.
evening, take back off. Huh.
Yeah, refuel maybe. Like unless you have like a double sized fuel tank, which just seems like it'd be extra hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, nuclear diamond battery. I don't know. I mean, like I've heard some stuff about it, but I don't know enough about it to know if it's hype or real or what.
I have no idea what that is.
Just like using radioactive carbon from nuclear reactors, which does I think like beta decay or something, and then just like compressing it into like a synthetic diamond, so that as it does its beta decay, it's just giving off electrons basically, and so it just develops charge by just sitting there. So you can like leach charge off of it, and like we have nuclear batteries and stuff for like pacemakers and things, but you know I don't know how they compare to anything. People talk good, but there's a lot of new things that come out that people hype up. It's unreasonable.
Yeah,
But if it works, it would be really cool in sci-fi to have like a diamond you just like stick in your device and it's like powered by the jewels. You know, that would be cool. It's like really sci-fi. Like if you like all the aliens have like gem powered stuff. You know, none of them have like little black pieces of metal and acid folded together.
use GMO bacteriophages to treat an infection. No, I don't know. That doesn't.
Yeah,
Haven't used uh, uh, bacteriophages in general to treat infection. We don't really do medical experiments, procedures.
yeah, yeah. I think it's
Bacteriophages are also this weird thing that everybody's talked about for 50 years, but nobody's ever like really used them useful. Kind of like stem cells, you know. No offense, stem cells, I love you. Like
you're gonna die
you
now
know,
because
like stem cells, everybody just has talked about for like the last 30 years, but like, and don't get me wrong, they're really great for scientific research, but their use in like medicine is basically, very little to none.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that are just easier, at least now, to deal with using chemistry. Like we're pretty darn good at chemistry at this point. We've been
Yeah.
doing chemistry for a long time. Um, and we got a lot of really good chemicals and like small molecule stuff. You know, Bacteriophages are just viruses that attack bacteria.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of problems with that because like yourself with huge doses of bacteriophage because it'll still piss off your immune system too, right? But yeah, any more questions?
Anything else before we head off for the day?
Yep, we got some micro injection to do. Use for a kit to teach screening.
I don't even know. I don't know what you mean by that, but probably not. No.
Yeah, like even simple sort of like stuff like PCR and stuff is harder to like have a kit for than you think.
Yeah. Science is, and not all science that people do is actually useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Although that's a tricky one, right? It's like I know you and me are kind of on the same page with that, but for a lot of people, there's like you know you can't make a utility calculation out of exploring an unknown space. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like yeah, a lot of it is just like what was that one where they were like I don't know something about like I don't know, like something dumb.
I
I
have
forget
no
what
idea what you didn't
it was.
say.
It was
It's like,
like I
what's
don't know.
that
I'm trying to
one?
remember the paper where they were like I don't know. They made like I
Oh,
don't know.
paper.
Fruit flies have like
Oh, yeah.
D if they get them drunk or something. I don't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
it was like okay, nobody ever needed to know that. Like if all of human history, if we went without ever learning that, it would have changed nothing.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We appreciate it. We'll do a stream next week. Hopefully, Dario will be here.
Yeah,
Um, Biohack Planets next week. Come if you're in Austin or Texas or something like that. If you can't afford a ticket, let us know, please. It'd be great to have you. Otherwise, Biohack the Planet and see you next week.